Today we finally get to dive back into our NATT swap series so we can finally finish out this fully in-depth guide on how to get everything boosted. So here we have got Matt's car. We've pretty much got the radiator ready to throw in. We got to bolt down the fuel rail, put the cruise control in, a couple other little odds and ends, secure the balance tube. And well, I don't know if you guys remember last episode, but we actually couldn't get this thing. I mean, we got it started, but it wouldn't run. It would fire up and die immediately, and it would run like crap if I did keep it open. Figured out what it was finally. So we hooked up a fuel pressure gauge over here, and we're reading a good fuel pressure. We eliminated that. We also did notice we had a pin that was pulled out of our TPS connector, so we got that pushed back in. And our balance tube was only hand tight with the acorn nut, so we tightened that down. We pulled the crank angle sensor and we spun it while the key was turned to the on, not running, but like the accessory position. It fired all 6 times throughout, and all of the air system has tight hose clamps and whatnot. Definitely no big vacuum leaks to keep it from running. So what we ended up finding out, we actually had it grounded through the coil pack right here, where we had it all ground out, and we used an actual 12 mil ground bolt. So what I ended up doing is I actually made this little jumper here, added a thicker gauge wire, and we brought it over here with our other ground. As soon as I did that, the car fired right up. We had no issues. So I'm super happy about that, because that means this video, we get to fully dive into this thing and finish it out. I've ran it for like 20 seconds or something at one time just to get the belt squeal to go away. But now we're finally ready to start buttoning it all back down and get it ready so we can send it back to Matt, because he really misses his car. We definitely got to idle it so we can see if we do have that turbo leak. At least we have that little bit of residual oil somewhere. I don't know where it's coming from. There's nothing on the drain, so let's get it. I guess we can crank it over for a second. Got to get some test pipes on it this video, but I think we'll probably just start with the radiator. So when it comes to putting a twin turbo radiator in an NA chassis, there's going to be a little bit of a discrepancy. So down here, these radiator mounting tabs are actually different. They're a lot more centered on an NA chassis. On a twin turbo, they're more spaced and out here on the edge. So there's actually conversion brackets that you can buy that has where you can sit your radiator down in the stock spot. Like, it has the dowels on the bottom of the bar, and then it has 2 other holes that you can fit those rubbers in beneath the radiator to sit it in place. I do have one of those that I kind of had to modify from years ago. Apparently the one that's offered only works on like Howe and Koyo radiators or something. Kind of dumb, but we'll just put it in the car. The hoses will hold it in place. And well, we will come back from the bottom of the car. We'll just lift it up like a 1/2 inch and we'll slide that new bar in, because we're gonna probably have to fab something unless we just pull the one out of my Z and use it. Now this can definitely be a battle, especially if your Z has ever been in like any kind of collision. Then everything will be kind of off, because you really need all the room that you can get. Honestly, it helps if your fan's off. I think we probably will end up pulling that real quick. Now that should give us the room that we need. So I think we're actually going to pull this drain plug. This is kind of not helping our case right now. Sure enough, it's exactly what I needed. Because you want to get it centered and kind of level before you push it the rest of the way down. Because there's quite a few things that get snagged on. There we go. Now we may need to find a way to pull this side over, because I feel like it's squeezing in a little too tight and not giving the radiator enough clearance. But I mean, for now it's in position. It'll be fairly simple for us to get situated. Let's go ahead and just put our hoses on and let's continue. First and foremost, we'll take our lower hose, get it fitted up. Usually if it's silicone, it's going to be pretty tight of a fit. Now yes, we do need to come back and put hose clamps on it, I know. I guess we just need a radiator cap, but before we do that, we'll throw our fan in and we'll put our little bleeder funnel in here. Before we really dive into that, we need to get under the car and get the test pipes on. One step at a time, Caden. Don't get distracted. I think now is a good time as ever to move on to those test pipes. Before we go to mount these up with our new gaskets, we're actually going to go back and we're going to wire brush this to kind of clean up the surface to help it be as smooth as possible so the gasket or the graphite doesn't actually sticks. Now you can see a little bit of shine to it. That's going to be perfect for our gasket. Unfortunately, these are never the right actual size for the bolt holes, so I always have to cut them. And we've got a couple of these OEM nuts, and these are actually the same thread pitch as your exhaust studs on the heads. So that was nice for me to just find out, because now I have like unlimited exhaust nut bolts. Exhaust nut bolts. Nice. So we'll lift the exhaust up on the studs and get our hardware started. Now that our test pipe's at least mounted up enough to hang, we can snug those bolts up, but we're not going to tighten them all the way because you want it to have a little bit of adjustment or play so we can get everything lined up here in the back. And if you have your AIV valves, install them right there, but we're actually going to delete all this system. It's the next day. I can't lie, yesterday I really had a tough time with the exhaust. Just was not having fun, but we got it all hooked up. We've got the 2 bolts on the rear hooking up the rear, like the cat to the cat back, and you've got your 3 bolts to manifold. The only thing we've still yet to do here is put our little brace between the trans tunnel on the underside of the car. Not a crazy big deal, because we're going to do that right before we drop it on the ground here in just a moment. I did idle the car a couple times, starting it up and whatnot, to kind of check for exhaust leaks. We've got those all sorted out. Also on E85 it condensates a lot, so you see that water drip and whatnot, you know when you have an exhaust leak. So now we're going to move on to dropping the car down. Obviously once it's down, we're going to be here bleeding our coolant, which we've put about 8 quarts in, probably 2 more quarts to fill it up all the way. We're actually going to be setting ignition timing once it gets up to temperature. So your coolant temp sensor on your car actually changes the timing of your car to warm it up on a cold start. So basically it advances timing to help it warm up, and then when it gets about 100 degrees, when the lever starts moving up on your gauge in the car, it's a stepper gauge. It's only got 3 readings: cold, warm, and hot. At about 100 degrees it starts to climb up, and I found that out using aftermarket gauges. So basically when that does happen, you'll notice the idle will drop down a couple hundred RPMs and it'll start to sound a lot better. That's because your timing is evening out where it should be at 15 degrees before top dead center. So all twin turbos, all years, are 15 degrees before top dead center. NAs from 90 to 95 are 15 degrees because they have VTC, but in 1996 the NAs are actually 10 degrees before top dead center. So that is actually a difference between them. Kind of like my daily, it's set at 10 degrees. I had a weird issue for the longest time having it set at 15 and found out it's supposed to be set at 10. And to do that, we're going to rotate our crank angle sensor down here. So you're going to want to loosen up all 10 of your bolts, and you're going to rotate it left to advance the timing, or right to retard the timing. So you're going to be doing that to aim it right on 15 degrees using the timing mark on the crank pulley. But to do that, we're going to need a timing light. So before we hook the timing light up, let's get this car back on the ground. Finally, we get to begin the final steps. Now we're actually going to bring the jack around here. We're going to lift the nose end up even higher so we can bring this point to the very, very highest point in the system. Not only does that help bleed, but then we can start to steer the wheels back and forth as we fill up the power steering reservoir and bleed out our power steering fluid. You want to use ATF3 on it. You do not want to use power steering fluid. These cars are designed to run auto trans fluid, not power steering. They're both hydraulic fluid, just like brake fluid, but they all have a different heat rating. Now the final step before starting is we're going to install our timing light, and the way that we install this is we actually use an inline spark plug wire. Now that I look at it, this thing has definitely seen better days. I hope it still works. It worked last time. We'll see if we can get a reading out of it. You want an inline, not like this 90 degrees, so you don't have to break it and have an open connection like that. But once you get the lower boot down, just pop it on with an extension, and you know, because when you give it a tug, it won't come off. So we're using this as an inductive pickup instead of using the PTU loop, which is right here, because this is a much larger gauge wire, so the inductive pickup is going to pick up the current in the connection a lot better. So your pickup will have a positive and negative connection, so you can hook it up to your battery to power the unit. And then your inductive pickup, you're going to look for the flow of current, and you're going to put that in line going downwards into the engine. Now we're going to plug this in, and we're going to start the car, warm it up, bleed the power steering, and get this thing ready to drive. The annoying noise you hear is the cavitation of the power steering pump. Basically, as you fill it up, it's going to get noisier, but as it gets closer to being full, the noise will quit. The power steering noise is gone. We're just going to let the fluid trickle down. The way you bleed this is you just turn the wheel back and forth, lock to lock, until you get the fluid to go all through the system and burp all the air bubbles out. Then you'll be able to put your dipstick in, tighten it, pull it, and check it. What the heck was that? No idea what that noise was, but how you bleed your power steering. You got to keep in mind your fluid does expand as it warms up, so don't get too crazy filling it up. It's better to wait once the noise stops to see where it goes, because right now you can see we're fully at the cold mark. So before we start timing it, we want to come down here to our timing light. You want to set it at 0, and so it reads the actual timing that we're looking at. So you want it as centered on 0 and don't mess with it. And as you pull the trigger on the timing light, going to flash down here, and you got to look for that indent on the crank pulley. And you're going to look at it straight on so you get the actual reading instead of looking at it from over here, because it can variate the timing reading by like 5 degrees. So it goes straight down on top of it so you get the actual reading. Right now it's reading right about 15 degrees. I don't know if that's still on a cold, so it may actually jump all the way back to like 7 degrees, and we'll have to turn it over. Our setting is about centered, so it should be good, but we'll have to see once it finally gets up to temp. Okay, we are getting up to temp. We're climbing up. So in theory, we should actually be reading the correct ignition timing to be able to set the timing. I actually need to open the garage door before we get smoked out in here. A little smoky. Fuel pressure's reading pretty good. Now to burp your coolant, you're going to want to turn your air on hot so you're running heat through the heater core. And then you squeeze your hose here to bleed your coolant through. I think we're up to temp now because you just heard that idle fluctuation. So as we read the timing from directly above, it's showing about 13, 14 degrees right now. And the way that we're going to change it is we're going to rotate the crank angle sensor to the left, so we can move that mark to the left and get it adjusted right at 15 degrees. It's just a bunch of trial and error, testing it a bunch of times until you get that correct reading. It's looking almost perfect. I think I went over one too many tabs. Reading it directly above the timing cover. Perfectly right on 15 degrees. Now we're going to take our 10 mil and we're going to tighten this top hole on the cast, being sure not to get stuck in the fan. You want to tighten this one down, then you want to go back and check, because just tightening that can actually rotate your cast if it's in there loose. So once we recheck and we're right at 15 degrees, that means we can actually shut the car off. It doesn't have to be super tight, just snug. We're going to start it back up one more time, recheck our timing, and make sure that didn't rotate anything at all. Perfect, right on the money. Our VG is officially timed. So we're gonna pull this inductive pickup. Make sure not to get close to that contact right there. Kind of like that. Grounding out on the plenum. We'll disconnect the coil pack. It'll misfire for a second. Yank that out. Reinstall the coil pack. Oh no, I gotta get the pliers out. It broke. Whew. That freaked me out for a second. Coil pack back. Plug it back in and pull it back. I think probably for the remainder of this video, we're just gonna sit here and burp out this coolant. Make sure we got our heat on full blast inside the car. And this being the highest point in the system, we're just gonna let it idle and squeeze this until we no longer have air bubbles popping out. Power steering's perfect. I think that means next video we're just gonna be doing the boost controller and we're officially done with this series. One thing we're probably gonna do in between is obviously get it back on the ground, get our crash bar put back on, and get our bumper re-secured. Gotta get that content in when we can. I ain't been getting the wash very much lately. I think we're about done over here with this bleeding process though. The air inside is super hot. We've been revving it. Put the plug in and let's pull it out. Still getting good fuel pressure over here. Yeah, let's shut her down. Oh yeah, that heat is hot. Sheesh. Exhaust gaskets are still smoking a little. Now I'm gonna keep this up on blocks probably for another day just so I can check that turbo and make sure that it's not leaking and whatnot. We'll also check the other side, just kind of look at everything after this heat cycle, make sure nothing's in contact and that everything's gonna be all right. Don't want to have Matt have any issues once he's driving 5 hours away or whatever it is, because it's definitely not close. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this brought some clarity, at least for the timing and whatnot of bringing everything back together, as well as the bleeding process. So far everything's so good, and honestly I'm a little scared. Not scared, but I have one final checkpoint that I have to get over, and it's not just driving the car. The car's got to handle boost because we changed the head gaskets. Just something in my mind. I haven't done head gaskets on a turbo car. Granted, I've done them on NAs and I haven't had the heads machined like we did these. So I've got everything going for me in this situation. I am the master at second guessing myself at anything. That's part of the reason I make these guides for you guys, so you don't have to be like me and go through all that extra pain and suffering. Next video, probably our final video when we should be driving the car. We actually have some vacuum hose coming in today from Concept Z Performance, along with a bunch of other parts, like stuff to finish the manual swap here, to get everything cleaned up and resealed, drop back in. So that series will be coming up next. At least it'll be resuming, getting finished. I think we'll probably have 2 videos. Yeah, we got the valve cover gaskets and the rest of the manual swap. Then we have our what to do if you buy an abandoned Z. And we actually have some more cool stuff coming for you guys once we get some of these cars out of the shop. So thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe down below. And I hope you guys enjoy the shorts that we're gonna attempt to make, because I'm a noob at this. Thanks. Peace.